The topic is finding unit rates in tables. The essential question is, when provided a table representing a proportion or relationship, can you find the unit rate? So all of the tables within these notes display a proportional relationship. So it's telling you that right off the bat, okay? So to find the unit rate in a table with a proportional relationship, just go y divided by x. When you do that, that's how you would find the unit rate in a table that has a proportional relationship. You just divide the second row or column by the first row or column and label it, okay? Because when you see a table, one of the first things I want you to do is label the columns as x and y. So what I see right here is I see a table, and you're going to label the first column as x and the second column as y, okay? So this table shows a proportional relationship between hours a person works and their pay. How much does a person make in dollars per hour? So this implies you need to find that unit rate. You need to find out how much a person makes for working an hour. Okay, so per hour, how much do they make? So the directions to tell you to find a proportional relationship from a table is you just go, or to find a unit rate from a table that shows a proportional relationship, you just go y divided by x. Well, luckily you've labeled this x and y, and all you would have to do for each value in the table is go y divided by x, because that's going to help you find the unit rate. That means unit rate. And what I see right here is I see $48.75. And yes, you do label. And the hours is 5 hours. Remember, money goes on top, time on bottom, so this works out. And from there, that's just the rate. From there, to find the unit rate, you need 1 in the denominator, okay? So I want to say 1 hour. And how do you get from that 5 hours to the 1 hour? Well, you just divide it by 5. All right, and then when you go 48.75 divided by 5, you get as your unit rate $9.75 per hour, okay? And once you get that, I do want you to write that right here, times 9.75. So this kind of tells you take the value of x, which is 5, multiply it by $9.75, which is your unit rate, and you get this y value right here, okay? Okay, and I do want you to get in the habit of doing that for each value in the table, because sometimes the tables are not proportional. But we'll go more into that later on, okay? All right, so for this one, it's again y divided by x to find that unit rate. So y is that money, the pay, sorry, $68.25 for working 7 hours. And to find the unit rate, you want 1 in the denominator. You want to know how much they make per hour. And so to go from 7 to 1 to make these equivalent fractions, we divide by 7 right here, because 7 divided by 7 is 1. $68.25 divided by 7, you get $9.75. And again, that's your unit rate. So you're multiplying this hours by $9.75. And you'll see when you go 7 times $9.75, you're going to get this y value. Okay, for this third value in the table, you go y divided by x to find the unit rate. And they make $29.25 for working 3 hours. So to find the unit rate, you want 1 in the denominator, because you want to figure out how much they work in 1 hour, or how much they get paid in 1 hour. So to go from 3 to 1, you had just divided by 3, and you must do that to the numerator. And then $29.25 divided by 3, $9.75. Okay, so again, I like seeing this, so then it helps you later on when I show you about equations. So let me go ahead and show you this. Every value in the x column, when you multiply it by that unit rate, you'll get the y value, okay? So 5 times $9.75 equals $48.75. 7 times $9.75 equals $68.25. 3 times $9.75 gives you $29.25. Doing this will help you later on when you need to find values on your own, okay? And also this will help you as I ask you to find the equation. So some of you may get this right away, and some of you, we might need more practice, but for the future, I'm going to make you find equations for situations. So equation for this particular relationship, or this situation, would be y equals, now that unit rate is $9.75 times x. And I do want you to label that. The x represented hours, and see, that's why I make you label everything, because then when you go to label other things, you're not confused. Y represented the pay. Okay? So what this means is that unit rate, $9.75 times the x value, like times 5, gives you the y value, which was $48.75. Or you can go $9.75 times that 7 hours, press equals, and then you get the pay, the corresponding pay, okay? All right, so that right there is the unit rate for this proportional table. It's proportional because it's the same unit rate for every value relationship in the table. We also need to make sure you answer the question, how much does a person make in dollars per hour? You would say a person makes $9.75 per each hour worked. Your summary that you need to answer in a complete sentence is, how do you find the unit rate from a proportional table? The next problem says, this table displays proportionality between how much red paint is mixed with blue paint to make a special shade of purple to paint Nadishda's room. How many quarts of blue paint are needed for every 1 quart of red paint? So we are going to go ahead and find the unit rate, okay? Because it's asking how many quarts of blue paint are needed for every 1 quart of red paint. So you'll see it right here, we have a table, and this is a horizontal displayed table, but you still do the same thing, x and y. And when we're trying to find the unit rate from a table, we need to do y divided by x. So for each value in this table, I'm going to go ahead and set up that, and I'm going to leave myself some room. So I'm going to draw an arrow to display this little relationship right here, okay? So y divided by x equals, so 3.5 blue, quarts blue. I'm just going to write blue. So if you need 3.5 quarts of blue, you're going to need 2 quarts of red. Okay? And what you need to do right here is you need to go ahead and find the unit rate, because that right there is just, well, that's the ratio because they're both in quarts. So we want red on the bottom. And 2 divided by what number gives you 1? Well, it's divided by 2. So you need to also do that to the numerator. 3.5 quarts of blue divided by 2 is 1 75/100 quarts of blue for every 1 red. That's the unit rate, okay? And put the unit rate right here because you're multiplying it by 1 75/100. Now for this next relationship, I'm going to also draw an arrow because I want to leave myself some space. And to find the unit rate, I got to go y divided by x. Well, here's the y value, and that's blue quarts. And the x value is 4.5 quarts red. That's just the ratio right there. We got to find that unit rate, okay? So you want 1 on the denominator. So 4.5 divided by 4.5 gets you 1. So we got to take this value and divide it by 4.5. And you also get 1 75/100 quarts blue for 1 quart red. So again, you took that x value, you can multiply by 1 75/100 to get that y value. All right, for this last one right over here, this last relationship in the table, I'm going to have to draw an arrow way down here so I have room. I'm going to go y divided by x. Well, the y value is 10.5 quarts blue for 6 quarts red. And we want to get 1 in the denominator to get the unit rate, 1 quart red. So we got to go 6 divided by 6, because 6 divided by 6 is 1. So you got to go 10.5 divided by 6, and you would get 1 1/75 quarts blue. Sorry, it's so smushed, okay? Go back up here to your table. 1/75 quarts is the unit rate per 1/75 quarts of blue paint for every quart of red paint. Okay, so let's go ahead and answer that in a sentence here because we know that that's the unit rate. She will need 1/75 quarts of blue paint for every 1 quart of red paint, or you could say per quart of red paint. So let's see if you can figure out the equation modeled by this situation right here. So your equation would be that the quarts of blue paint is equal to, so this value was equal to 2 times 1.75. So instead of just saying 2, because you want it to work for every value in this x column, you would just say x times 1/75. Okay, and you'll notice I wrote the 1/75 before the x. You can write it the other way around, but typically you want that coefficient in front of the variable right here, okay? And that x value, if you forgot, you look over here and it says quarts of red paint. And that y value right there is that quarts of blue paint. And just to label this, just so you know for the future, that's the unit rate. Okay. Go ahead and get started on the next problem. This table shows a proportional relationship between the profit a hot dog vendor earned and the number of hot dogs sold over a work week. How much profit does the vendor earn per hot dog? So again, we're going to find the unit rate. This is a proportional table. So when it's a proportional table, you're going to know that it's going to have the same unit rate for every value in the table. Okay? So anyway, we need to label this x and this column y. And for every column in the table, or for every row in the table, we want to do y divided by x. Y divided by x right here. And the y value was $100, and the x value was 80 hot dogs. And I'm going to abbreviate hot dogs with like just HD. Okay? Now that's just the rate right there. To find the unit rate, we need to have 1 in the denominator. And I'm sorry that there's writing right there, but hopefully you can follow along. So 80 divided by what number gives you 1? Let's divide it by 80. 100 divided by 80. Go ahead and punch that in. What do you get? You get $1.25 per hot dog, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write this right there because that's going to help me with my equation. And later on, it's going to help you know what to do when you need to fill in your own values right here, okay? So now for this next one, got to do y divided by x to find the unit rate. So $108.75 divided by 87 hot dogs, and that's you need to find the unit rate. So we want 1 hot dog on the denominator, and so we're going to divide by 87, divide by 87. This value divided by 87 also gives you $1.25 per hot dog. Okay, now this one, again, y divided by x. And so it's going to be $115 for 92 hot dogs. You want 1 in the denominator. That says hot dog. So we got to divide by 92, divide by 92. 115 divided by 92 is $1.25. Label it. So again, we multiplied the x value by $1.25, which was the unit rate, to get the y value. Okay, this one, we're going to have to do y divided by x. So $133.75, and they get that much profit for selling 107 hot dogs. So find the unit rate, divide by 107 to get 1 in the denominator. So divide by 107, the numerator, by that, and you get $1.25. So that's the unit rate. So we multiplied the x value by $1.25. So if you're curious about why I'm making you do this, it's because sometimes the table will not be proportional, and you need to do this to see if you're able to write an equation for it, okay? So right here again, y divided by x. And that would be $90 profit for selling 72 hot dogs. Okay, that right there is just the rate. So to find the unit rate, we want 1 in the denominator. So we have to divide by 72. 90 divided by 72 gives you $1.25. Okay. So, how much profit does the vendor earn per hot dog? The vendor earns $1.25 per each hot dog sold. Okay, so let's see if you can figure out the equation right here. Y equals, well, that unit rate is $1.25 times the x value, and we label this, the x value was hot dogs sold, number of hot dogs sold. The y value is the profit, because that's what's labeled there, profit in dollars. This right here is the unit rate. And something you should also know, you can flip these around. You can also say $1.25 times x equals y, okay? But typically you'll probably see it like this. For some reason they like y to go first. All right, now I'm just gonna say it out loud, this the summary right here, because I know sometimes people are just watching the video on mute, and I want you to be able to hear the lesson, because that kind of helps reinforce the lesson when you hear it verbally. So here is the summary that I want you to answer, okay? So if the table already states that if the problem already states that the table is proportional, can you find the unit rate using any two corresponding values in the proportional table? I'll say it again. If it already states that the table is proportional, can you find the unit rate using any two corresponding values in the proportional table? So it says it's a proportional table, it's got a proportional relationship. Can you find the unit rate using any x and y value that correspond to each other? Yes or no? Number 4 says this table represents a proportional relationship between teaspoons of cornstarch and beef broth for a gravy recipe. How much beef broth is needed for 1 teaspoon of cornstarch? So this right here is a ratio, because I see we're comparing teaspoons to teaspoons, and we need to figure out basically the unit rate, because it's asking how much beef broth is needed for 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. What you should know is when it's a proportional relationship, the unit rate for every value, every corresponding x and y value in the table will be the exact same, okay? Because it's already telling us it's proportional, so I know that that's what's going to happen, okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and just draw an arrow right here, so I give myself some room. We're going to do y divided by x, obviously, to find the unit rate. But you're noticing that I'm skipping the 0, 0, because if I just went 0 divided by 0, you could not get the unit rate. Plus, you can't divide by 0, okay? So anyway, I'm drawing an arrow to represent this relationship right here, and we're going to find the unit rate by going y divided by x, okay? That will help us find the unit rate, and the y value, because I have x and y labeled, because I have a table, the y value is 1. So it's 1 teaspoon beef broth, so I'm just going to put BF. For 25/100 teaspoon of cornstarch, and I'm just going to put C. Okay, that's not the unit rate necessarily in terms of cornstarch, just because you don't have 1 in the denominator. Yeah, there's a 1 in the numerator, but I want to know how much beef broth is necessary for 1 teaspoon cornstarch. So I want 1 on the bottom, 1 cornstarch. So to go from 25/100 to 1 using division or multiplication, we'd have to just divide by 25/100. That says divide by 25/100, and do that also to the numerator. Put your decimal, please, because sometimes it's hard for you to see mine. 1 divided by 25/100, what did you get? You would get 4. 4 teaspoons beef broth for every 1 teaspoon cornstarch, okay? So to go from here to here, all I did was multiply by 4. Okay, and let's double check right here. Let's see, well, let's find the unit rate right here. It should be the same as this one, okay? Y divided by X. Y is 2 teaspoons beef broth for half a teaspoon cornstarch. And we gotta go Y divided by X like we are. We gotta now get 1 teaspoon cornstarch in the denominator. So to go from 5/10 to 1 using multiplication or division, well, we have to use division because 5/10 divided by 5/10 is 1. So we got to also do that to the numerator. 2 divided by 5/10 is 4. Wait, just kidding. Yeah, it is. It is. Okay, so 4 teaspoons beef broth for 1 teaspoon cornstarch. So again, we multiplied this by 4 because that's our unit rate. And now this guy right here, again, Y divided by X. Y is 3 teaspoons beef broth. X is 7/500 teaspoons of cornstarch. Now to find the unit rate, we need to get 1 in the denominator. And we need to divide by 7/500. That says 7/500 divide by 7/500. 3 divided by 7/500 is 4. So look, same unit rate. So 4 teaspoons beef broth for every 1 teaspoon cornstarch. So times 4. Okay, and look right here. Again, Y divided by X equals Y is 4 teaspoons. Oops, sorry, teaspoons broth. I don't know why I wrote teaspoons. I should say beef. So I'm consistent. For 1 teaspoon cornstarch. Well, that's already a unit rate right there. So yeah, because it's already over 1. So we just times that by 4. So you'll notice when the X value is 1, that's going to be the unit rate. Not when the Y value. No, it's when the X value is 1, that's going to give you the unit rate. All right? That's just a kind of a trick that makes everything so much faster if you get that. When X is 1, because you want X on the bottom, when X is 1, that corresponding Y value is the unit rate. Okay? So you'll see this is a proportional table as evidenced by having the same exact unit rate for every corresponding X and Y value in the table. And it did tell us it's a proportional relationship. So to answer this question, how much beef broth is needed for 1 teaspoon of cornstarch? 4 teaspoons of beef broth are needed per teaspoon, or you could say for each teaspoon of cornstarch. I'm really happy you're listening to these notes just because you probably can't read my handwriting half the time, and so hearing it verbally reinforces what I'm wanting you to write. Okay, I want you to figure out the equation for this relationship right here modeled by the table. It would be Y equals 4 times X. X stands for the teaspoons cornstarch, I'm abbreviating, and Y stands for the teaspoons of beef broth. And that 4 right there is the unit rate. Okay? And another way you can write this is you could say 4x equals y. Same thing, but make sure you label that, okay? This is still teaspoons of cornstarch. Y is still teaspoons of beef broth, okay? Okay. Number 5, fill in the table below to represent this proportional situation. So again, you know, since it's proportional, that all the unit rates are going to be the same when you compare x and y, okay? You're going to multiply all the x values by the same exact unit rate to get the corresponding y value for that x value. So if you drive for 6 minutes, you will travel 12 kilometers. What's the unit rate? So let's go ahead and just start with that information right there. You drove for 6 minutes, you went 12 kilometers, so here's time. We're going to put a 6 here, and they tell us 12, all right? So for your x values, I'm just going to go ahead and you can pick them if you want, but I'm just going to give you some. We just need to fill in this table and make sure it's proportional, so I don't care what values you pick. I want to try to pick like nice numbers. So 10 looks good. Let's do 3. I'm going to do a fraction. I do want you to do a fraction. Let's do 1/2. And let's do 5, okay? So we need to find the unit rate. Since the only value that we have, see all these, we had all the values already, so we could just do it real quick. Here we only have one of the values right there. They only give us this information. But you should know that because this is a proportional situation, it's going to have the exact same unit rate, okay? So to find the unit rate, we must go y divided by x, your dependent variable divided by your independent variable. And let's label everything, okay? So y is distance, distance on top. So 12 kilometers. And if you go 12 kilometers, you had to travel for 6 minutes. Okay, that's not the unit rate, that's just the rate, okay? To get to the unit rate, you got to have 1 in the denominator because you want to know how far you went in 1 minute. So to go from there to there, you just have to go divide by 6, divide by 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2, so 2 kilometers per minute. That's your unit rate, okay? So we had multiplied x times 2 to get the y value. So since this is a proportional situation, all these values to figure out the corresponding y value that goes with it is just multiplied by 2, okay? So 10 times 2 is 20. 3 times 2 is 6. 1/2 times 2, so double a half, that is 1. 5 times 2 is 10. Okay. Hey, is this the unit rate right here? No, that is not the unit rate. Remember, x has to be 1 for it to be for that corresponding y value to be the unit rate. Because look up here. X was 1. This right here is the unit rate, okay? Not this. No, it's this one, okay? This is the unit rate. You'll see right there. Unit rate, unit rate, unit rate. When x is 1, the corresponding y value is the unit rate. Is x 1 over here? Nope, y is. So this is not the unit rate because your unit rate is 2. 2 kilometers per minute, okay? So it says, what's the unit rate? Let's just answer the question. The unit rate is 2 kilometers per minute. Or you could say the unit rate is 2 kilometers for every minute traveled. Now let's go ahead and write the equation to model the situation. We went the unit rate times x to get the y value, okay? And again, you should know that you can go y equals 2x, same thing, okay? But typically you're probably going to see it like this. All right, we have to label it though because you must always do that. So y represents distance in kilometers, so you could write distance or you can write kilometers. And x represents the minutes, okay? And what does that 2 represent? That's the unit rate. And I should probably, sorry if that looks confusing, okay? All right, your summary. In number 5, how did you find the distance for each corresponding amount of time? So in this problem number 5, how did you find these values? How did you find those? Explain it right here. Problem number 6 says, complete this table to display this proportional relationship. So it's telling you that the table will already be proportional, and information that it provides is 8 pounds of apples cost $6. So do you see how this table is completely blank right here? I do want you to, of course, label that table, this one as x and this one as y. This is the independent variable, this is the dependent variable. And I'm just going to go ahead and just plug these, this 8 and the 6 right into the table and get my table started, okay? Now your table could look different than mine, but I'm just going to go ahead and just use your table should have this in it, okay? But you might have different values in it based on which numbers you choose for the apple pounds. All right, so apples, there's 8 pounds of apples. And that would cost $6. I don't need to put the dollar sign because it's already indicated right here that this is represented by dollars and this is represented by pounds, okay? Before I go ahead and I pick numbers that I want for the pounds, I'm going to kind of look at the questions that it's asking me to find because then that will help me minimize some work later on down the road. It says, how much does 1 pound of apples cost? So since we don't know that and we have to find it out later, I'm just going to put that 1 right into the table. They want to know how much does 1 pound cost. I'm going to put 1 right there. Okay, we don't know its corresponding value yet, but we're going to look at the next question here. How much would 15 pounds cost? 15 pounds, they give us that information, so I'm going to put 15 there. How much would 4 75 pounds cost? So they're giving us pounds again. Okay, and then that's all the ones that they want us to find. So I want you to pick just any number of pounds that you'd buy and put it right there, okay? And what I'm going to try to make this a little bit more challenging. I'm going to give you a cost, which I'm going to say if I spent $1.35, how many pounds of apples did I purchase, okay? So on your own, you can pick whatever value you want right here, but I want you to figure out its corresponding pounds. This is the one I picked, so you could choose that too if you want, all right? Okay, so we got to continue this proportion. We have to continue it, you know, it's got to be a proportional table because it tells us right here. And from the previous notes, you should know that in a proportional table, you've got the exact same unit rate. You've got a consistent unit rate. So remember in previous examples when, like, in number 2, we had a consistent unit rate when you found all the y divided by x's. And right here, proportional table, you'll see that it's all got the same exact unit rate. So since we're already on number 6, I'm not going to necessarily make you do that for every single one of these. Find each one of the values, okay? Because we're going to just start with what they give us. So off to the side over here, I'm going to just go ahead and write down, because there's not much room, I'm going to write the unit rate. So it's y divided by x. So to find the unit rate, it's y divided by x. And I'm just going to pick the only value I have right here where I have both the x and the y values. And y goes on top, so that's $6. And x goes on the bottom, which is 8 pounds. Okay, that is not the unit rate yet because remember we want we want 1 on the bottom. And so how did I get from 8 to 1? Well, we divided by 8 and divide the numerator by 8 also. So 6 divided by 8, go ahead and do that. And you would get 75 hundredths, which is 75 cents per pound. Okay, so you see how we have that 1 pound right here? The cost for 1 pound is 75 hundredths, 75 cents. Let's say it like money, okay? So now we're able to answer the first question. How much does 1 pound of apples cost? It costs 75 cents. Okay, and so we took this x value, we had multiplied it by the unit rate, which is 75 hundredths. So that's what we do for every single value in this table because it is a proportional table. It tells us that there's a proportional relationship. So you see how right here, since I already know y divided by x is going to equal 0.75, I already know all those values that will go in here. So I'm going to put this as a reminder, 75 hundredths. You multiply your x value by 75 hundredths, okay? So now to find how much 15 pounds of apples cost, you would just literally go 15 times 75 hundredths, okay? 15 times 75 hundredths, what'd you get? $11.25. So 15 pounds would cost $11.25. Go ahead right now and figure out how much 4 75 pounds would cost. Round it to nearest hundredth if you need to. Okay, and I got $3.56. Look at my calculator. This was what I got. Rounding it to the nearest hundredth is right there. So if you look in the thousands place, that number is not 5 or above, so that 6 remains a 6. $3.56, okay? All right, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Well, you're supposed to take that x value and multiply it by 75 hundredths to get your y value, but you got to go backwards. You have this information, you have the unit rate, so to go backwards, what do you have to do? You need to go $1.35 divided by 75 hundredths. And you got 1.8. So 1.8 pounds, 1 8/10 of a pound, costs $1.35. Here's how you double check. Multiply it to see if you get this. Multiply 1.8 times the unit rate to get $1.35. Let's double check. 1 8/10 times 75 hundredths equals $1.35, and it matches, okay? All right, I forgot to answer this question. How much would 4 75 pounds cost? $3.56, okay? Let's see if you can figure out the equation for this particular problem up here. What's the equation? Well, you took your x value, you multiplied it by 75/100 to get the y value. So you can write it out like this as y equals 75/100 times x, or you could totally also write 75/100 times x equals y. Same exact thing, okay? But I do want you to label the variables just because that's what we do, and it's going to help you later on as we get deeper into these type of problems. X represents pounds of apples. You just abbreviate with pounds. And y represents the cost in dollars. So you can even put a dollar sign right there, okay? Same with this one, cost. And then right here is the pounds of apples. And remember, this right here is the unit rate. That's how much 1 pound of apples costs. Okay? All right, so for number 7, the ratio of caramels to truffles is 2 to 4 in a chocolate company's boxes of chocolates. Fill in the table to represent this proportionality. So it's implying right there that this is a proportional relationship. I see the word ratio, I see the word proportionality. So I know that this is going to be a proportional table, and what you should know about proportional tables is it's going to have the exact same unit rate, okay? You're multiplying the x value by the exact same unit rate every time to get the corresponding y value, all right? So let's go ahead and start with the information they give us. So it's caramels, so this right here is representing caramels. 2 truffles, so this right here is representing truffles. So I'm going to put C to T so I don't forget. Okay, so caramels is 2, truffles is 4, okay? So from there, I can just kind of pick any values you want for let's see. Oh, if there was only 1 caramel, how many truffles would there be? Well, let's put that one right there. And then that kind of makes these other ones are blank, so you can pick any number you want for this. I'm going to go with 7. I'm curious, if I had 7 caramels, how many truffles would I get? And then I'm going to give it, like I did up here where I gave you the y value, I'm going to have you work backwards. So I'm curious, if I had 120 truffles, how many caramels would be in that, that company's box of chocolates for that? Okay, so let's go ahead and find the unit rate. You should already know that the unit rate will be consistent, and to find unit rate, you got to go y divided by x. And for that, actually, I have room right over here. So for my unit rate, I go y divided by x. Here's y, here's x. And I see that we have values right here where x and y are filled in because we have that information given in the problem. So y is 4, and I'm going to label it. I'm going to use T for truffles. Okay, that says T. For every 2 caramels. That's not the unit rate because remember you need one of the you need the bottom to equal 1, so I want it to be 1 caramel. So to go from 2 to 1 using multiplication or division, we divided by 2. So divide by 2 for the numerator and the denominator. So the denominator and the numerator. 4 divided by 2, well that's 2. So there's 2 truffles for every 1 caramel, okay? So my unit rate is 2. So all those x values, we multiplied it by 2 to get the corresponding y value because this is a proportional relationship. Now, if this was not a proportional relationship, we would not be able to do this, okay? And more on that later on, alrighty? Okay, so if there was only 1 caramel, how many truffles would there be? Well, there would be 2, okay? Because we took the x value, multiplied it by the unit rate to get the corresponding y value. And then if there were 7 caramels, how many truffles would there be? There'd be 14, because I went 7 times 2. Okay, now look, we have an empty blank right here for the number of caramels. So you would normally take the caramels times it by 2 to get the y value, to get the number of truffles. However, I gave it to you backwards, so you have to work backwards. So the opposite of multiplying by 2 to get this is to take this, divide by 2 to get this. So 120 divided by 2 is 60. Okay? Let's go ahead and answer the question. If there was only 1 caramel, how many truffles would there be? There would be, look at caramel, 2 truffles. Okay, let's go ahead right now. Let's see if you got the equation down. Well, our unit rate was 2. Y value would equal 2 times the x value. The x stands for caramels. like number of caramels, I guess, to be more specific. The Y value would stand for the number of truffles. And that 2 right there, that's the unit rate. There's 2 truffles for every 1 caramel, okay? And you could also write it as 2x equals y. For your summary, I need to know what makes a table's data proportional. So when you're given a table, how do you know it's proportional? Answer that.